Charles Barkley recently appeared on The Rich Eisen Show, where he addressed concerns about the WNBA's ongoing collective bargaining agreement discussions. The Hall of Famer didn't hold back when talking about how certain decisions by top players might impact the league's future. During his conversation with Rich Eisen, Barkley highlighted a specific concern involving one of his preferred players. He mentioned having great admiration for Nafisa Collier, even expressing disappointment when she didn't secure the MVP award. However, he pointed out the potential complications arising from her role as co-owner of Unrivaled, the new women's basketball venture. The former NBA star warned that if labor disputes lead to a work stoppage, prominent athletes could simply migrate to Unrivaled and establish their own operation. We're in brink done for the growth of WNBA. And page backers, with Caitlin, Angel, and Cameron injured this season. The fuck is Cameron Brink done? I'm sorry. What the hell? I think saying Hailey Van Lith is responsible for it. I know Cameron Brink's better than Hailey Van Lith, but neither have done anything in the WNBA. You gotta understand one thing about these negotiations, and I've been in these negotiations. The stars aren't the same as regular players. Let's get that out of the way. The stars are the ones who drive the league, but most of the rank and file are regular good players. Collier, alongside Brianna Stewart, launched this alternative league with a distinctive structure where athletes don't just join teams but actually hold ownership stakes, allowing them to share in the financial success. This differs significantly from traditional arrangements where players simply receive salaries. Multiple retired NBA professionals have suggested that women's basketball athletes involved with Unrivaled enter CBA discussions with significant leverage, potentially demanding similar revenue-sharing arrangements. The league's recent growth, largely attributed to superstars like Caitlin Clark, A'ja Wilson, and Angel Reese, gives these players substantial bargaining power. One particularly questionable claim in the discussion mentioned Cameron Brink among the players responsible for league expansion. This seems like a stretch, comparable to crediting Hailey Van Lith with driving growth. This way worries for the expandable players is the WNBA window striking all the ages and the Nafisa Ariana Caitlin, all those meant to rivals. They start their own league, their own equity, and make 3 times what they make right now. Then that would screw all the other players in the WNBA. Charles Barkley was peculiar players. He's very familiar with superstars and lockouts. He was one of the superstars in the year with Jordan, Larry, Magic, and Shaq. And one of the things we know from Charles Barkley is he literally won't be in 2K because he doesn't believe 2K are. While Brink certainly has more accomplishments than Van Lith, neither has genuinely moved the needle for the WNBA in meaningful ways. Barkley emphasized a crucial distinction that often gets overlooked in labor negotiations. Elite players operate differently than standard roster members. The superstars drive viewership and revenue, but the majority of any league consists of solid, competent athletes who aren't household names. This creates tension when discussing compensation structures. His particular worry centers on what happens to the expendable players if work stoppages occur. Should the WNBA experience a strike, nothing prevents Wilson, Collier, Clark, and others from joining Unrivaled full-time. They could build their own operation with equity participation and potentially triple their current earnings. This scenario would devastate the remaining WNBA players who lack such alternatives. Barkley's perspective carries weight given his experience. He competed during an era with Michael Jordan, Larry Bird, Magic Johnson, and Shaquille O'Neal, navigating his own labor disputes. His credibility on these matters extends beyond words. Notably, he's refused compensation from the NBA 2K video game series because he believes they inadequately compensate retired players. Into this, fully invested, or they fully believe the saying. I think Charles Barkley's one of those. Says here there are loads of rank and 5 players in the WNBA. What Caitlin, Angel Page's salaries are now were close to smallest NBA contracts. They have major deals that Clark solves to a historic deal with Wilson. Side player fee is wage award to WNBA, as wage award WNBA switch to Cathy Engelbert. Says hopefully the agreement gets done in time makes sense. I don't think anyone wants to see a lockout, tell the ESPN. It's not something we're advocating for. We just want to make sure that this deal is done the right way. He's literally walked away from money based on principle, demonstrating genuine commitment to protecting those with less bargaining power. When someone questions whether Barkley truly believes what he's saying or whether he's genuinely invested in these issues, his track record speaks volumes. He's consistently backed up his statements with action. The WNBA currently employs numerous rank-and-file players whose earnings pale in comparison to even the smallest NBA contracts. Meanwhile, athletes like Clark, Reese, and Paige Beckers command massive endorsement deals, such as Clark's historic agreement with Wilson Sporting Goods. These disparities create complicated dynamics as players' union representatives like Nneka Ogwumike wage their campaign against Commissioner Cathy Engelbert. So we're advocating for, we just want to make sure that this deal is done the right way, using whatever time it takes us to have both sides agree on something. Nneka Ogwumike obviously stepping in and saying that, and saying here, I don't think anyone wants to see a lockout. I think there are people that want to see a lockout. Unpopular opinion is I think there are people that want to see a lockout because I think there's a good chance that there will be not some form of maybe not exactly like a non-compete where you're not allowed to play for everyone else, but very much restrict. Ogwumike has publicly stated her hope that an agreement gets finalized promptly. She told ESPN that nobody genuinely wants a work stoppage, emphasizing that it's not something the players are pushing for. The players simply want proper negotiations that take whatever time necessary to reach mutually acceptable terms. However, there's a contrary viewpoint suggesting some parties might actually welcome a lockout. The theory goes that if work stops, the league might implement restrictions preventing players from competing in outside leagues. While perhaps not strict non-compete clauses, there would likely be significant limitations on participating in alternative competitions. Barkley raised a valid concern when he questioned whether starting a separate league truly benefits everyone or just the elite few. He's among the rare individuals who can point to concrete historical examples of advocating for lower-tier players for those who came before him and for ensuring everyone receives fair treatment. He's genuinely accepted reduced compensation or turned down money entirely for these exact reasons. His argument holds merit, though it may not ultimately determine the outcome. But the fundamental truth remains accurate. If Unrivaled becomes the primary destination during a lockout, it helps the stars but doesn't help the other 140-plus players who won't have Unrivaled contracts. The debate essentially comes down to priorities. And Charles is somebody. You can say, and about a lot of people, but Charles is the one person who has a historic track record that you can point to, him standing up for the lower players in the league, him standing up for the people that were there before him, trying to make sure everybody eats. By Charles Barkley has in fact taken less money or refused money for that specific reason. So, is it more valuable that superstars receive compensation closer to their actual worth, or is the overall health and accessibility of the league more important? That's a subjective determination. Across professional sports, stars never truly get paid their full value, while mid-tier and lower-tier players often receive more than their production justifies. Given the WNBA's actual revenue figures, certain players earning substantial salaries contribute minimal value. Mercedes Russell making $180,000 while providing essentially nothing represents someone being overcompensated relative to performance metrics. Still, this probably won't become a major concern for either the league or the players, with people like Breanna Stewart and presumably others involved in negotiations representing various perspectives, including bench players. Multiple viewpoints get considered. Ogwumike will certainly oppose any work stoppage. Regardless of public statements, widespread sentiment suggests most players harbor negative feelings toward Commissioner Engelbert anyway. There's speculation that NBA Commissioner Adam Silver might get involved in negotiations, potentially stepping in for Engelbert. It wouldn't be shocking to see Engelbert removed from her position, though realistically she can't be replaced before CBA talks conclude. I will say the message from KK Timson genuinely sounds like it was it sounds like KK is the NO. However, she could possibly be terminated with Silver assuming interim duties during negotiations. Despite all the speculation, it seems unlikely the WNBA season won't happen. Nearly every realistic scenario leads to games being played. If the main obstacle becomes a non-compete provision and players are being offered maximum contracts between $2 million annually, yet still balk specifically over the non-compete, public opinion toward Collier and others would crater. Whether that's the actual situation remains unknown since everything at this point is hypothetical. Barkley made another excellent observation that often gets ignored when people celebrate Unrivaled as a positive development for women's sports. The idea that a lockout allowing players to earn more money in an alternative league sounds beneficial until you consider the numbers. These alternative operations will never employ as many athletes as the WNBA. They'll never field as many teams. Scaling Unrivaled to WNBA proportions would require a decade of development. So while a lockout with players migrating to Unrivaled might improve circumstances for top performers, it doesn't help prospects coming through college programs. There's finite equity available, and the founding players own those stakes. As salaries increase for new additions, the original player's equity becomes less valuable, creating inherent conflicts of interest. When the league generates more revenue, higher salaries mean diminished equity value for original stakeholders. Investors will become frustrated if athletes receive massive paychecks while profits disappoint. The entire situation becomes incredibly complicated if Unrivaled replaces the WNBA as the primary league following a lockout. From a fan's perspective, the ideal outcome involves both leagues coexisting. That probably won't materialize exactly as hoped. Both might technically exist, but restrictions on participating in multiple leagues will almost certainly be implemented regardless of how negotiations conclude. The Indiana Fever celebrated having 2 representatives earn all WNBA recognition this season. You're a great teammate, you're a great friend, you went out there and you gave it all you got and so you had nothing left with her and you get nothing but respect from me, dog. We locked in for life. Congratulations, and I know next year's even gonna be bigger. Kelsey, I'll get Buckets Mitchell. Tell the league, I'm not new to this, baby. I'm true to this. Congratulations on all your success this year, and congratulations on first team. Keep making an impact, baby. Kels, congratulations, making first team all WNBA. You are truly 1-on-1. I'm so... Kelsey Mitchell secured a spot on the first team, while Aaliyah Boston earned second team honors. Both placements appear well-deserved based on their regular season performances. Regarding Mitchell's first-team selection, there's little debate about its merit. The top 5 choices seemed clear-cut when focusing solely on regular season play, excluding playoffs from consideration. Boston's second-team placement also fits appropriately, though some voiced opinions that she deserved first-team recognition. However, the actual selections appear justified. The entire Fever organization rallied around both players with heartfelt congratulatory messages. Initially, tributes poured in for Mitchell, followed by similar recognition for Boston, showing the organization's commitment to celebrating both athletes equally. Teammates expressed genuine emotion about Mitchell's achievement. One remarked that nobody should be shocked by this honor, noting it's merely the start of even greater accomplishments ahead. They were the entire trainees to have in. And to be fair, look, I think it's one of those things with this Fever team especially that they really did become a unit, whether that be players 1 through 12, players 1 through 17, squad players, coaches, everyone. It's that's what you have to do in that scenario to win. When you're down that bad, you have got to be a team. And there are a lot of times where being a team, I joke with the power of friendship, but you can. The sentiment emphasized how much work remains in Mitchell's career trajectory. Another teammate highlighted Mitchell's relentless effort throughout the season, acknowledging she consistently received less credit than deserved. There was satisfaction in seeing her finally gain proper recognition. Caitlin Clark, sporting Butler University apparel, delivered her congratulations.